Today's discussion topic is whether or not drum sampling or drum replacement is cheating. This is something that I know people have a lot of strong opinions on. I have a few opinions of my own, but I'd really rather this be an open discussion that you can feel free to weigh in on in the comments below. But the basic premise here is that I'm sure we're all very aware that with technology, it is very easy to take a recorded drum part and replace the recorded sounds with basically a sample of anything else that you want. It could be another acoustic drum sample, it could be an electronic sample, it could be a drum machine. It could be anything, or it could be any combination of those. It could be 8 different snares that are mashed together. It could be, an 808 kick plus an acoustic kick. And I have done drum replacement, I have done drum layering, I have made my own samples, and I think that right now, sort of where I fall is that I try to not rely on samples as much as possible, and not because I'm fundamentally opposed to the idea of using samples, but because it seems like there are a lot of folks using the same samples. And the problem with that is that everything starts to sort of sound homogenous. There's a lot of Slate samples being used out there, and of course the Slate stuff sounds amazing, but when you've heard your 4th song with the exact same snare sound, then it starts to get a little bit monotonous. So it's not even so much that I'm opposed philosophically to using drum samples, but it's just I want a different sound. I want something that's unique, and I feel like that's what a lot of producers and engineers are kind of getting into now, is that it's not even so much that they want the quote-unquote best possible snare sound or the most amazing punchy full kick sound. It's that they want something that sounds unique, even if it sounds a little weird or a little different. So I will try to not rely on samples as much as possible, but if I get to a mix stage and I feel like what I recorded is missing something, or if I feel like there's an extra element that I want to add in, I'm not afraid to add a sample. And I've used other drum samples, I've used my own recordings from the past as layers or as samples, and I've also used unconventional sounds. I've got a sample pack of someone hitting a punching bag, like kind of sounds like that, and sometimes I'll add that to snares just a little bit, or sometimes I'll add it to kicks, and it sounds really cool. So I know some people are completely diametrically opposed to using samples of any kind, that it's cheating, which, those people are entitled to their opinion, and I am actually empathetic to that feeling that there's something lost when you just record something, not really to be recorded, but just to be replaced, especially when that's the intention going in. I know a lot of artists really do a shoddy job of recording because they're really just trying to get the basic tracks because they know that they're going to replace it all later, so they don't really spend much time getting anything to sound good right off the bat. However, I do think it's also interesting to think about this from another angle and bear in mind that this idea of replacement is already extremely prevalent on another instrument, which is on keyboard, right? And actually this is related to the drum set as well, because the idea of MIDI, or the idea of having notes that just tell you a velocity and a note value, but don't necessarily tell you what sound you're getting. We are familiar with MIDI as drummers, MIDI programmed drums, but most people are also familiar with MIDI as it's used on keyboards. So being able to play something on a keyboard controller and then decide what sound you want later. You can go through and make it, a string section, or you can make it an organ or a piano. And I wonder if anyone can weigh in. I actually don't know what it's like in the keyboard community if session players are really protective of their sounds and that they don't send any MIDI information of what they play. I guess I would assume that most people who are session keyboard players would send maybe their sounds and then also MIDI information in case someone wants to change it later. But I don't know, maybe they're sort of like drummers where, some people are really opposed to their sound being replaced or modified in any way. So there's that aspect of it. And then by a similar token, I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of reamping on guitars, where you record your guitar dry, not going through an amp, and then you can take that exact performance on that exact guitar, but you can modify it later by sending it through any amplifier that you want, or you can use digital amps, modeled pedals, which are all extremely, extremely common right now. So you could think of that as almost like the guitar analog of drum sampling and drum replacement. And that is extremely commonplace, and I feel like is being widely accepted by guitar players. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I shouldn't speak to the guitar community or what the guitar community thinks, but it seems to me that that is maybe a little more widely accepted among guitar players than sampling is to drummers. Sampling and drum replacement, although I think it is extremely commonplace among mix engineers, and I think there's probably a lot more replacement and sampling going on than most people realize, it seems to still be kind of anathema to drummers themselves who bristle at the idea of having their sounds modified or augmented in any way. So there's some food for thought, just a couple ideas that have been kicking around in my mind, and like I said, I'm most interested to know what you think about this, and maybe I'm completely off base and everyone is totally cool with drum sampling and drum replacement, or maybe it's totally on the other side and, you know, drummers absolutely hate this, or maybe we're all kind of somewhere in the middle, sort of like I am. Please let me know in the comments. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.